don't know. That's part of it.
We didn't do that for the last one either. I don't think there's any graceful or manly way to look clapping.
Can you give us a couple demos?
Yeah, you look like you lick walls.
I mean, I'm not gonna deny that you look like you lick walls.
I think it's verified though once you start watching me clap.
I would feel a lot better. I probably wouldn't feel as bad if it wasn't the bathroom walls you were licking, but you know,
ooh, that's gross.
It is.
The best thing that came out of COVID was not having to shake people's hands, and now they come up to me and I go, little fist bump.
I actually prefer. I mean, I like a handshake, but I think a fist bump's pretty cool.
Handshake is listen.
Hey, our listeners are going to be upset if you don't say "listen, dear." So
no. That's when I'm trying to be condescending. See the difference? I'm just saying, listen. I'm in the bathroom with these mother effers. I see what they do in there and what they don't do in there.
You caught on to what he just said, right?
Yeah,
I see what them boys do in the bathroom.
The questionable part is he paying attention to them not washing their hands, or is he actually trying to sneak a peek of what's going on in there?
Man, he is a little funny now, and I don't mean
Anyway, all I'm saying is I don't want to touch anybody's hands ever.
Don't worry. When Jeff gives you a bear hug, he won't be touching your hands.
Jeff?
Yeah. He's promised everybody that he will get a picture of him giving you a bear hug at this event. And you can't let him down.
I throw elbows.
I'm sure you can throw whatever you want at Jeff, and
they're pokey. He might be into it. I don't know. I like things poking at me. Things attached to men. Listen. Don't try to hug me. You'll get the claws.
The bear claws. This is the extent of this show.
I was gonna when I listened to the show, it starts this way, and I'm like, there's no way this has got to be played up some, but no, this is me and my service writer on a daily basis. This is how we do.
That's what we try to explain to people. It's like they're like, oh, they're not very serious, and you're not exactly on a topic. Well, I mean, this is us sitting around talking.
Correct.
You know what I mean? And this is what it sounds like if you're in our shops. And unfortunately for our clients, this is what it sounds like.
No, it's so much worse. He's mean to his staff. Mean.
Oh, I've talked to a few of them already.
Yeah.
Can you see the PTSD in their eyes?
If I knew all their names, we could probably have fun, but I only remember Eric right now.
Oh,
yeah.
Poor soul.
He trembles, and he's like, he's not around, is he? He's not around. Oh,
and
breathe.
What is your service advisor's name?
Which one, Jade or?
It must be Jade, the purple and blue
that's
hair.
Jade. That's Jade.
So
there's two dudes kissing behind you right now. I'm dead serious. Dead serious. You just missed Mike Allen and Justin Morgan kissing.
This is why we don't have the curtains. This is why. This is why we keep them down.
So Jade was in the same class I was in this morning,
right?
Along with Eric and a couple of other guys.
Yeah, Malin's class.
Yes.
Introduce our guest.
Introduce yourself.
So I'm Matt Ruffman. I own Eastside Automotive in Greer, South Carolina.
Yep.
Took over the shop after working there for 13 and a half years, 2 years ago, October 1st.
Nice. And so you were in class, Malin Newton's class on service advisor to technician communication.
Correct.
And you met two of my employees. Did they say like really bad things or just semi-bad things?
Oh, no. Which one? Eric? Eric speaks his mind.
Yeah, for sure.
But Malin asked for input, or not input, participation.
Yeah.
And so it seemed to be mostly me and Eric, because...
Did Eric get a participation trophy? He's really been gunning for one for most of his life.
You know, I did have to step out a few minutes early to do this. If nothing else, he participated with patting Jade on the back with anything that must have pertained to her. I mean, it was like, or there was another one where they were talking about what technicians should do, and he just looked straight around her at one of the guys, and I was like, you can see, like, but my guys would do the same thing.
Right.
I brought one of my techs with me. He is determined to embarrass me. And
why is he not in here?
He is in an electrical class. I didn't know I could bring him over. But he was determined to, and I know what it was. So a few weeks ago, he started, "Thanks, Dad." So it's turned into, "Hey, son," or "Good job, son." Slightly embarrassing. I walk out on our first break earlier. We're kind of in a separate area. I walk down to the side, and I thought I saw him based on clothing.
Right.
I holler out, "Brando." Nobody responds. I said, "Hey, son." 3 or 4 of them turn around. I went, "Brandon's not down there." I was like, he wants to embarrass me. I'm going to take care of it myself is what's going to wind up happening.
That's exactly right.
But he is determined to do it, and I haven't done anything yet, but in the mastermind chat, I was going to let everybody know, look, when he goes for this, just roll with it, and I will play it up and act like I am so petrified of what the response I'm going to get.
Oh, dude.
Because he wants to play it up with he gets paid in company bucks and that he has to pay to use the bathroom and stuff. So, and he started this with Eric yesterday, and Eric's like, "Well, this is what I'd say." And he starts looking at me, and I'm like, "Brandon, look, we're actually talking to Eric about a diag we're struggling with right now. Let's lay off a little bit of this for the moment."
Well, you've given David some ideas, company bucks. And paying to go to the bathroom. Listen. I am going to give you a piece of advice about though, especially when it comes to porta johns, things like that. You don't charge them to go to the bathroom. You charge them to get out of the bathroom. Okay.
Well, what we discussed was charging. There's a certain amount for every time he rolls the toilet paper.
Yeah,
it's 50 cents a flush.
Paper.
Yeah.
If I have to go get a plunger because he's worried about 50 cents a flush.
Yeah, I need to. No, I need to encourage flushing. Flushing is a good thing. There's nothing worse than walking in. That hasn't happened in a while, but I've had employees in the past that they Hadouken the turd into the toilet. They may or may not wipe. I don't even know. They may shake whatever's hanging on loose, and then out the door they go, and that's it.
This is really important. You've got to define Hadouking because, like, our listeners don't know what that is.
Do you know what a Hadouken is?
I know what my service advisor told me the other day, but I don't know how careful I should be with it.
A Hadouken? It's from a video game, Street Fighter 2.
No.
Well, you told me about what
like we're talking about Duke at this point.
There's a character in the game, easily the most popular fighting game ever.
Yeah, but I wasn't born in the 80s.
It's not. I was born in you were born in the 80s.
Yeah, but I mean, I'm not like as far back as you were.
Okay, the game is still being released today. You can get it on PC. Street Fighter 6. I got a copy. It's very good. Anyway, there's a special move, and the guy blasts out this like ball of powerful energy, and he screams out Hadouken when he does it. So I had a tech who used to tell me, he's like, "Oh, I'll be in and out of the bathroom in a few minutes." I'm like, what really? He's like, "Yeah, I'm going to Hadouken that turd." I'm going to spread them little butt cheeks and just Hadouken that turd out there, and I'll be out in a minute. Like
30 seconds later, he's out, and you're like, "Dude, I know you didn't wipe."
So, I mean, as long as he knows it's a white flag, he's probably good to go.
Right. So people don't get mad at us. We'll get serious.
Nobody's ever said, "Hey, keep it serious." I don't think that comment's ever come up.
If it was too serious, you probably would have lost my attention.
Yeah, I know, right? We met a while back.
Correct.
You're in one of the groups, and you recently joined the ASOC Mastermind.
Yep.
And the shop has seen a whirlwind of change.
Yes.
The last few months.
Mm-hmm.
Let's start with why there needed to be a change.
So as Lucas and I talked at one point, there was a time I lost my only tech in the shop the first week of January early this year.
Okay.
That was right after I had hired a service advisor.
Mm-hmm.
So at that point, it was just me in the shop. We interviewed a few people. We could not put a package together that was making them want to move. As much as we tried, we just couldn't nail it down.
Yeah.
And I think the biggest thing was there were times where we were offering, better, I don't want it to all come down to dollars, but a better package.
Yeah.
And with especially one of them, a known quantity because he knew my service advisor. Mm-hmm. So he had somebody to reference how it was working with me. But he had a known quantity where he was.
Yeah.
And he asked a lot of the right questions. He asked, what's your car count? What's your average RO? How do you do this? How do you do that? Now, he's very old school. It was all written where he came from.
Yeah.
Because he does now work for me months after that. But that put me in a position of working a lot of weekend days, at least 12 hours a day most days.
Yeah.
And then we had a string where for 42 days I did not take a day off, and they were 12 to 16-hour days, including weekends.
Yeah.
And the biggest problem there was that was just to keep up.
Yeah.
That was between me helping my service advisor do it the way we want it done and really drill that down. Between doing that and then paying attention to the books and trying to reply to Facebook messages, it still was turning me into a 60 to 65-hour tech on average. And I say on average, there were weeks I turned more.
Yeah.
There wasn't a week where I turned less than 57 working those kind of hours.
And we kind of had a talk that this didn't really seem sustainable.
No, and another thing is those were billable hours. We were doing a lot of diagnostics or testing and inspection.
Right.
That at the end of an hour, I feel for the customer.
Yeah.
And, hey, I just need 30, 45 more minutes. I'm just going to do it. So in reality, I was putting in more hours. I wasn't charging for those hours.
Exactly. Yeah.
So it wasn't, my production was there if we were billing for it.
Right.
But it wasn't sustainable. I was exhausted. I was getting burnout. And I think the biggest thing was also you'd look at the end of the month and you're going, for all the work I'm doing, where's
the money?
Where's the money? And not just like where's the money for me, but where's the money so we can really start setting aside to get into things we don't do, be it ADOS as we see more of them.
Right.
And tool up for that or afford to come to events like this. Where are we going to be able to set aside that money if we're making ends meet plus a little?
Right.
Not enough to cover
not
those
actually
kind of
earning a living.
Correct.
Just earning money.
Correct. And so in looking through that, I came across the Changing Industry podcast. It popped up, I believe, as a short in my YouTube. Mm-hmm. Listened to a couple of those, went to the YouTube, started watching some of them.
Good old YouTube shorts.
That's right.
And started listening to some of them, and I was like, man, this is like, everybody does things a little different. Because I would talk to my service advisor daily, and I'm like, and I'll be honest, I was like, I'm not saying that everything this guy says is Bible.
Yeah.
There's different ways to skin a cat, but to come out with the same result.
Yeah.
And I said, but these are some ideas we really need to look into. At that point, I still didn't know there was a Facebook group of ASOC.
Right.
So then I found a podcast, went back to the beginning, binging it forward at this point. I'm on episode about 34.
Right.
But found a Facebook group, started talking with you. We spent a Sunday evening for probably a solid 2 hours messaging, sharing some reports and some.
And I remember that first message, and I so connected with that first message because you asked me about back office and how to put the information in. I remember that. And the reason I connected with it was because what you said was something I remember saying at one point. Well, I just need to do this and I'll fix this. I just need to, if I just put this information in, then it'll be fixed. And so the first thing that came to mind when you reached out to me was, well, what are you trying to accomplish? Right? Like, what is it that you want to do? Like, where are we now? And what is it we're trying to accomplish? Right?
Correct.
And I think that's one of the biggest benefits of the Facebook group and this network of people that we've got around us is because, if we can understand what it is, where you want to go and what you're trying to accomplish, boys, that's a whole different conversation as opposed to here's the answer to your question.
Correct.
Right? And it's And it didn't have anything to do with me. It's just like I've been taught to ask, like, what are you trying to accomplish? Where are you trying to go?
Correct. It's like the podcast where you had the guy that I want to hit 1.2.
Right.
Why do you want to hit 1.2? What's it going to do for you?
Exactly.
And you were pushing me. What is this going to do for you?
Yeah.
What's for the biggest thing is going to relieve stress. It's going to build up a reserve.
Yep.
And then, once we've gotten where we're comfortable there, it could allow for whether it's changes. I'm a flat rate shop.
Yeah.
I know a lot of people are getting away. It could allow for a much easier transition to look into that.
Yeah.
It's going to allow for tooling, training.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't have all the answers. I'm not perfect when it comes to working on a car. So if I didn't feel like I needed the management leadership classes this weekend,
right,
I would still be in here taking lab scope.
So we started making changes.
Correct.
Tell me about the changes we've made and what you've seen change in the business.
So the main thing we changed, Lucas and I, was to implement, we changed 3 lines on my parts matrix. Yep. And that was it, just 3 lines. And it drilled in that we need to bill appropriately, build value with the customer, which is something my notes had always done for the customer.
Right.
I was good about expected result, actual result.
Yeah.
And kind of walking a customer through without doing a novel.
Yeah.
But a little, 2 sentences, drop down 2 sentences to get to where we were. But if that took me 2.5 hours, it was still a 1-hour charge.
Yeah, boys.
The one time I've always changed something like that, and the easiest example, because it happened recently, is that we would test for fuel pressure on a Tahoe.
Right.
We have no pressure. Relay circuits are good. We put in a test relay. It's good. And the next step for us is we need to test power and ground, current draw at the pump.
Yep.
We're only 15 minutes in.
Yep.
But that's a 3.2 hour R&R.
Yep.
We stop. We contact the customer. This is what we need to R&R.
Yeah.
And this will allow us to test for power and grounds. If you have a wiring issue, we may be calling you back because those can be hard to trace. But this is where we need to go. If we open it up, and this is something you may hear and want to change a little bit, but if we open it up, we have power and ground, and maybe even we apply a separate power and ground to make sure we got full voltage, full current.
Yeah.
And that pump won't run. We know we need a pump.
Yeah.
On a Tahoe, it's going to be a pump, a relay, and a fuel filter.
Yeah.
If that is what we find, and you approve where I never have to put the tank back in, then we're willing to knock that R&R down to a 1-hour testing and inspection. And then we'll do a separate R&R line with the parts for the actual repair.
Right.
Because we're still spending time testing wires, ground circuits.
Well, so what we do in my shop is then if we're in that situation, we do our level 1 testing routine. Mm-hmm. Go back to the client, Mrs. Client. Here's what we found is we found that all the electrical systems down through the control systems up top, the PDC, power distribution center, et cetera, are good. Mm-hmm. Now, unfortunately, I cannot access the top of the tank without removing the fuel tank. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and write you an estimate for fuel pump replacement, which is the most likely direction that we're headed. If we need to replace the fuel pump, it does come with 36-month, 36,000-mile nationwide warranty. And during this, we're actually going to go ahead and load test all of the circuitry. We're going to verify that we do have good power and ground to the pump and that the pump still does not run, at which point we would replace the pump. Now, Mrs. Client, there is a potential that while we're in here, we may find that this is what's going on. It could be a wiring issue. And if that were to be the case, you wouldn't be charged for the pump because the pump wouldn't be needed. Does that make sense?
Correct.
And so that's how we handle it.
And that's actually hearing it.
Yeah.
Sounds a little bit better than we're going to re-break it down into separate lines.
Right. Instead of having to explain to them like why this is on here and what's there, we're just telling them like, hey, we're going to do the testing because I have to remove this to do the testing.
Correct.
All right. So hold
on. It sounds like that too, by the way. If you listen to those stupid phone calls, they sound just like that to the T. Radio voice and everything. Anyway.
Do you listen to my phone calls?
You send them to me.
Oh, that's true.
Listen to this. This guy started yelling at me. He was mean to me. I'm like, hey, Mr. Customer.
Hey, I just want to be completely honest. Listen, I need you to listen to me for 1 minute. If you ever imitate me and make it sound like Sheldon Cooper again.
Sheldon Cooper from Big Bang
Theory.
Yeah, you're going to need new teeth.
That is the show typically when we are eating lunch sitting down together.
Yes.
Big Bang gets put on. So
Yeah.
I've heard it too.
I'm going to ruin Big Bang for you. Watch it without the laugh track.
Okay.
I'll send you a clip.
Okay.
It's off-putting.
Is it?
The cadence of the show. The cadence of the show is somebody says a line, somebody says another line, joke gets thrown in, they pause. If the laugh track isn't there, it's like, this doesn't feel natural at all. This is weird. And then second line, joke, laugh track, wait. They wait. And then they go. The cadence is really, really creepy without the laugh track. Throw the laugh track in there makes sense. You're like laughing along and it's like, oh yeah. Take the laugh track out. Or have you seen the episode? What are you doing on your phone? We had a whole conversation about this. Like it's weird. What are you doing? What is that? Watch. He's doing it too. Watch an episode of Friends without the laugh track. So it's really weird.
So I was the type that in the shop, before I purchased the shop, I would have my little Bluetooth speaker.
Yeah.
And unless we were backed up, it was me in an 8-bay shop by myself. I loved it.
Yeah.
I had to run to the place. And my former owner was no longer in grow mode. He was headed toward retirement. Mm-hmm. And so, I mean, it worked out great. Right. I loved it because if I had a car that was going to type a lift, it wasn't put it together and push it out. Just the lift next door.
Lift, yeah.
And so that was great. But he always made fun of me for being the one that rather than music, I got tired of the same music.
Yeah.
I binged Friends from season 1, episode 1 to the very end.
So watch it without the laugh track.
And that was always his thing. Every time he heard it, he'd walk by me and he goes, I can't stand laugh tracks. And so that was first thing triggered when you said that.
You don't notice it while you're watching it, but if you watch it without the laugh track, it's like it's I don't know, the cadence, there's a specific cadence to it, and then afterwards you can't not notice it, and then it gets weird and you can't. It ruins the show for you. So I was hoping to ruin the show for you. You'll never watch it the same again. You'll think it's terrible and you're like, oh, this is awful.
Speaking of music and listening to the same music over and over again, Eric listens to the exact same soundtrack.
Oh,
and I don't think that there are but 10 songs on it.
Yeah. Oh, that is the worst.
Terry has.
Is it good music or is it like
it's
really?
Terrible.
Is it really?
It's like,
is it butt rock?
Yeah.
I imagine butt rock.
Yeah. And it's like just it drones on and on and on. And Terry has the most awesome set of playlists. And so every day it's something different.
Really?
Oh yeah, dude. He's got his music nailed down to a T. Everybody in the shop's moving and grooving. And like if Terry's not there, I just go in there. I'm like, dude, please turn your music off. Like you're ruining the mood. You're ruining the mood. It's awful, you know?
So the only thing different than what he does is I don't call it level anything. If it's a suspected fuel problem, if it comes in as a no crank or a crank no start condition, we have no crank or crank no start condition testing, and it's usually like $200, and we're going to check 50 different things. If it is a fuel pump problem, then or we have a suspected fuel pump problem, maybe we have codes because of the fuel pump module, something like that. We'll have a specific circuit testing, or we'll tell them, hey, we're going to start with this, and then the next set is to pinpoint the issue. We're gonna do a little bit of extra testing. We'll go to the harness and just stab it.
Yeah.
And now you can check for power and ground. The other thing you can do is you can load test the wires, and you can do a voltage drop test stabbing the harness. No need to drop the tank. I can do a current ram test that tells me where the pumps, and if it is kind of running, then the next thing is voltage drop test. Hey, voltage drop test passed. It's kind of running. We have power and ground. Otherwise, it wouldn't run at all. We have a bad pump. Done. Done and done. I don't have to drop jack. That whole conversation you had there, nothing. I don't know.
David
if
doesn't even call his clients.
I've heard that. And we had some pushback since we switched to Shopware. They feel like we're not going to call them. Mm-hmm. And but even in the text we send them the DVX first, and we let them know there. These are your results. We're going to work up an estimate. We'll be in touch shortly. We immediately go to estimate making.
Yeah.
To take as little time between them as possible.
Right.
And once it pops up and tells us they've looked at it and our estimate's complete, we give it a couple minutes from knowing they've looked at it. We send it over with prices. We put on there. Once you've had a chance to look this over, we'll be in touch with you. We'll give you a phone call. We'll be happy to discuss our findings with you.
Yeah.
It's been...
I've ran testing. I don't know if it's a customer-based thing. Maybe it's a customer-based. Maybe it's a Southern thing. I don't know. I'm just telling you. Him and I, like $20, $30 off on our ARO. I don't call my customers at all. At all. They get text messages. Hey, you're going to get an estimate. It'll look like an Amazon cart. And that's what I tell customers. It'll look like an Amazon cart. You have all your notes there. If you have a question, call me. But if not, I don't want to talk to you.
The issue that we have is that we have an older client base.
Yeah, I could see that.
And so they just absolutely.
But see, if we have an older customer, we know because they don't open the DVI. They don't open the DVI. You can see it's marked in yellow, and you're waiting and waiting and waiting. At that point, you do call them, and they're like, I didn't get a text message. And you're like, okay, let's run this through.
And what we've seen there is we're asking them up front. First, what is your preferred method of payment?
Of contact, yeah.
Method of contact. We ask them that. The younger crowd, and I would say even up to about 55 at this point, especially because we're in a business area. Michelin North America headquarters, I can see from my parking lot.
Yeah.
So they're used to using technology. Most of them will even say, I'm in conference calls all day. Shoot me a text. If I really question something, I'm going to call you.
Yeah, for sure.
But short of that, I'll respond, no problem.
See, we don't give them the option. Like, I don't want to have that conversation with the customer. Like, I'm going to dictate the terms of service. Like, this is the way we do it.
Yeah.
I'm going to send them to you. I'm going to send you a text message. Everything's by text. If you want to see it through your email, it's in your email inbox because I send it both ways. But every single time you get a text, you get an email. We blast. That's 3 clicks. Done. I don't want to talk to you. I don't want you clogging out my phone calls. I don't want to have any of that. Now, if you have a question or if there's a complication, hey, I've got to drop the tank on this because there's no way for me to get to the harness on this thing. It's $450 for me to drop this tank. I'm just telling you. Also, it's $450 for us to verify that there is power and ground on the circuit. It is going to cost you $1,152 if it turns out that pump is bad. But the minimum charge is going to be $450. That's what we're telling you. Oh, okay. Go ahead and do it. Oh, okay. And then...
Now, in that instance, do you still want them to, once you get off the phone, go to their phone and click approve?
Yes. Almost always do we tell them, go ahead and click approve just so you, but I just wanted to give you the breakdown.
Yeah. And that's what we've been doing. I just want to get input because we are currently on day 5 with Shopware.
Yeah.
Coming from Mitchell.
Just changed.
Yes.
Just changed.
And we're trying to nail down how we're
yeah, and you're going to have to, if you get a lot of, I wouldn't say pushback, if you get a lot of non-compliance, that's when you need to switch, like change it up a little bit. Like you're expecting the customer to do X, they do Y, something's wrong with your system consistently. Now, I'm not talking about the one-off or the one that you remember. You need to keep metrics. Just keep like everything went smooth. Pull up all your ROs. You can pull up all your invoices and go smooth. What went wrong here? Okay, that may just be a one-off. But if you're seeing went wrong, smooth, went wrong, smooth. Okay, now you've got an issue. You see what I'm saying? Yeah. Now something in the process is off. And so switch it up because you're going to have to tailor it to your customer base. You're going to have to switch it to whatever they prefer. Having that conversation up front is fine. But a lot of times people will say one thing and do something completely different. They'll tell me, yeah, text message is fine, and then never open their text messages. Ever. It's like, I sent you 7 texts. Yeah? Did you open any of them? No. Or I didn't know what to do. It's like, it tells you what to do. It says, click here, and then there's a link.
Yeah, but not everybody...
No. I want to know what most people do, not everybody.
Correct.
Okay, there is no such thing as everybody. That's an impossibility. Impossibility. We're looking at a bell curve. I don't care about the outliers. We chop them off. Don't look at him for approval. He doesn't know.
I'm not looking at him for approval. Right now, I'm looking at him going, man, me and him are along the same line. I'm actually having fun getting you worked up a little bit right now.
I'm not worked up. This isn't worked up. He hasn't seen it worked up. I'm looking at a bell curve. The fat part of the bell curve is all I worry about. Chop off the ends. That's it. And if we're doing one standard deviation, that's 16% one way, 16% the other, and you're only worried about the middle, 68%. That's it.
Sounds good. So we always need to also ask them, would they like us to make them aware of any safety or reliability concerns?
There you go.
No.
That's exactly what you do every single time. Yes. That's your permission to do your DVI. That's your permission to do your DVI. So,
what? Permission?
Yes.
Permission?
Yes.
Is it your car? Let me ask this.
It's not my car, but this is my shop and my process. If you want this car to come into my shop, then I'm going to do X, Y, Z.
It's mine.
You don't want that? There's a shop fix shop right down the street. They'll be happy to just change your oil.
You are going to get us sued.
Okay.
It is my qualifier. But this is how I qualify.
Right. And it is what allows them to know what you're going to do. And you can turn them away if they don't want to do things your way.
I just tell them, hey, we're going to look the whole car over.
Dad voices
You're
them?
going to get...
He dad voices them.
Listen,
I don't dad voice them. Well, unless they need it. I just tell them what's going to happen. I don't say, hey, would you like me to... No, I don't
make it.
Would you like me
to
anything?
Right?
Who is that?
Huh?
Why are you waving to people? There's 8,500 people have walked by here. Several of them are kissing each other and they're flashing you. All sorts of nonsense going on there. That's the only person you wave to.
Because she's awesome. That's MB Dowd.
Who?
MB Dowd. She's the new vice president of ASTA. She's awesome people.
Wow.
Yeah, she's really cool.
Well connected.
She runs Casey's Tire Pros and is just an absolute rock star human being. Just really cool people.
Let me ask you this though. When we're talking about permission to do a DVI versus, hey, we're doing it, it's our shop.
Yeah.
If you were to do an added service, this was talked about in the class earlier, such as we washed and vacuumed their car. The way they worded it was the customer was so happy, oh my God, I can't believe they washed it. I'm the customer that nobody washes my truck unless it's approved. My truck's ceramic coated. My bike's ceramic coated.
Crazy.
Yeah, that's why I don't do any of that nonsense.
Crazy Frank Hewengard. Remember that?
With a Tesla?
No. The guy with the issue because we cleaned the inside of his car and it smelled like cleaners and I was he was gonna die because I put cleaner in his car.
You know, we don't one good thing that ShopFix does is they push the quick clean. The quick clean is like inside the windshield. So they do the glass on the inside. They wipe down like the mats and stuff like that. What's that?
Why do you keep?
Is it bothering you?
No, it's not bothering me. I'm just curious. You've never ever said that name on this show ever, and you've said it 4 times today. Is it on your mind?
Maybe, I don't know. We just went to Ratchet and Wrench. He was a keynote speaker. I wanted to watch his keynote speech. Well, we didn't stay. Where'd we go?
We went to get bit by a rattlesnake.
Oh yeah, we went hiking. Oh, that was fantastic. Never mind, that was so much better than the keynote speech. It was well worth it.
So, but I'm also the type, had we had my tech in here, he was doing trip check on the truck we were bringing up here.
Yeah.
And he said, it needs a belt. I said, do it. I don't care.
Yeah.
Well, it's not, I don't care. You said belt takes 10 minutes. Put a belt on the truck.
Right.
Well, he gets the belt and I said, oh, wait a minute. By the way, let me let you know before I get frustrated. The part number and the writing on the belt should face the radiator on my truck. And he looked at me and I said, trust me, you don't want me as your customer. And I get that. I said, but you have to also understand that as a technician, there were times I would take a belt off when I realized I put it on backwards. My OCD would kick in and I would take it off and flip it around.
That is a huge benefit until the paint wears off, because then you can look at it and know what the part number is if it's your own truck, if you're capable of changing your own belt. Correct. And it makes life way easier, even if you have to lean around the side or go over here.
What are you talking about?
Until you memorize the belt number, and then you just know the belt number.
What nonsense are you saying? What are you talking about?
Wait, so you can see the number on your belt in case
You can see it whether it's backwards or forwards.
I can't read backwards.
Well, that's because you're from North Carolina. In South Carolina, we're taught to read both directions.
That's right. You just lay up on. Look.
Apparently not, because you're like, hey, it's got to be facing this way, because otherwise,
this dude's under the hood.
You put the wrong belt in my car. What are you talking about? It's backwards. Like, what are you saying?
I could believe that some clients would say that.
I'll say the biggest reason I got in the habit of doing that was it was always if you were removing the belt for a component.
Yeah,
doing an alternator. I always wanted it to run in the same direction. Mm-hmm. So rather than ever grabbing tire chalk,
makes a good point.
I always knew that if I put it on and it was facing that way, I never had to chalk it.
Unless the
only matters with
off of.
timing belts, though.
Okay,
timing belts you're supposed to put if you reuse them, which I don't know why you would take a flipping timing belt off a car and then put it right back on. That is insane to me.
It's only got
80,000
miles on it.
No. Hey, I touch, I replace. That is the hard and fast rule. Again, we're talking about one standard deviation. 16% of the time, I don't do it. 84% of the time, I am replacing that sucker. $32 timing belt, and hey, we're doing a water pump. And we just ran into those, like a Ford something or another, and I knew the water pump had to come off. I built it incorrectly.
Oh yeah, the Ford 3.5. If that's what
no. This was like a 1.6 or something like that. A little baby Ford. The water pump is not timing belt driven, but you have to remove the timing belt to get the water pump off. And I knew it because there's a tool, and we have the tool, and I knew it. And for whatever reason, I didn't include the timing belt. I hate the timing belt. The tech takes the timing belt off. He goes, "Hey, you want me to put this back on?" I'm like, "No." I mean, is it like brand new? He's like, I'm like, okay, then no, for sure, no. Anyway, we ended up eating it.
There are a lot of truck guys that are just like that. Even gasket placement, right? And the way
gasket what?
Like 12 valve Cummins. Like if they would get underneath the hood of their truck, because you know what I'm talking about, where they've got individual valve covers.
I do, but we have like 2 diesel customers.
Right.
I'm a Ram 1500 Hemi.
Right. Well,
but I know what you're talking about. They would sealer.
Right. Well, they would, anything like that, if anything's splooging out, or like those valve cover gaskets, when you tighten them down, there's a stop on the bolt, but it's got to have an O-ring on it for the stop on the bolt to actually work. And so we would have clients show up and be like, "You tighten my valve cover gaskets down too much." Huh? Walk out, and sure enough, you can see them pooched out just a little bit. It's going to leak oil if I leave. Okay, hang on. I'll get you set.
Yeah, well, he's technically correct. That's what the stops are there for. That's a sloppy.
It's because you're sloppy.
That's because a processor procedure wasn't followed.
Exactly.
A what?
Processor procedure.
Processor procedure. No, that's... Yes. I mean, if you want to be that exact on it, because a lot of it comes down to the technician. Like, you leave it up to the technician. I have a tech who does not want splooging. He doesn't want to see any splooging, and so he'll tighten, it splooges, and he'll wipe.
Well, that's fine, but I'm talking about if you're over tightening the thing, right, the bolt, and it's rolling that seal.
Yeah.
If it doesn't have to be a written shop policy or process or procedure on how to do it at Cummins.
Yeah.
But if they know they're supposed to do it to OEM spec and use Mitchell all data wherever your spec is, then they didn't follow the procedure.
100%. Yeah, 100%. And that is the shop process for us, is that you're to torque the bolts.
Correct.
Right? That's all there is to it. So after the change,
I would do the torque to spec, but I would do when necessary. I don't know. It really depends on the. It depends on the car.
That's just it. Is that the when necessary becomes a problem? Is because if there is a torque spec, it's to be followed is the rule. Because if you do it,
there's a torque spec for literally everything on the car.
Are you spitting truth? Is that what that was? That just
did that come out? Did something come out? Yeah. I am spitting truth. I'm always spitting.
So there is a torque spec for everything.
Everything ever.
But there are times where if we're going through a Mitchell all data procedure for a repair, they won't list a torque spec for every bolt. It'll say, reinstall hose and put screw back in bracket. it may not say what the torque for that.
I've never seen there'll be ranges where it'll say like 84 inch-pounds to 116 inch-pounds. It's like, okay, well, that car, it's like, that's just get it tight. It's whatever.
The problem for me is that if we have a rule that says, not all the time, but sometimes, we want you to do this. What ends up happening is then we forget or we don't follow it and we think, or they say, well, the one time was this time. Well, yeah, but this one time caused a problem. It doesn't matter if you.
Well, then that becomes the rule. Then hey, for example, if I put bolts into your parts list, you better flip and replace the bolts. Yes. There's a reason why there's bolts in your parts list because they're not reusable. If the OE information, or if it comes in the box, or the information says, do not reuse, make sure that it's blue glued at least.
Well, not even that. If it's torque yield, it's replaced. Don't even blue glue.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, sure. It just depends. It depends on what it is. There's some things that are like, why is this getting thrown out? This is stupid. And a lot of times is that it's not torque to yield. It's just that it came with lock sealer from the factory. And now that you've removed it, it has broken that lock seal.
Boys, that GM yellow stuff.
That's god-awful.
Dude, that's
that's what I'm saying. It's like, well, we can reapply the chemical and put it back in there.
Yeah, I don't know that yellow stuff. I don't think you can find anything quite like that. That's some real.
The yellow stuff has a spec. Like somebody makes the yellow stuff. It's not. It's not gold.
I agree, but it goes on and it's like dried.
Caliper
it's like,
bracket.
Yeah, it's like glued to the. It's like glued to the bolt.
Yeah,
and it does not perform the same. You put red Loctite on it. You put whatever you want on it. It does not perform the same. Because it's like
you put green or orange, it'll work.
No, when you start backing it out, here's the thing: is that like it doesn't release even with heat. It maintains that resistance the whole way out as you're taking it out. Man, that stuff is tough.
Oh yeah, and it's wire wheel it off.
Yep.
Well, but the problem
back
is
on it and shove it back together.
Yeah, I ain't trying to do what they did to me to somebody else.
Well, that's what I'm saying is that GM a lot of times will put that yellow stuff on there and then not say that the bolt's even that needs to be replaced. Ford, however, will put a tiny dollop of blue and say that's not reusable. Why the not? It's not torque to yield.
Well,
I should be able to.
When you build shitty cars, you kind of got to.
That's true.
You got to
anyway.
Make money
We just
blue
glue and we're and then back in there it goes. Everybody's got a thing of blue glue until I run out of blue glue. Then they use the red glue. But what about the marker? The tamper.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah,
we started using that for oil changes.
Bolt markers.
Yeah,
we use it for steering, suspension, brakes. Most all of that gets marked.
Huh?
We mark everything, especially alignment adjustments and whatnot.
Really?
Mm-hmm. We had one recently that came back.
Do that?
I've had a tech that did, but I didn't require it. Oil change would probably be the one big one I'd like to see us start doing.
It's not for the customer. It's not the customer is tampering with it. It's that your tech forgets to tighten the flipping drain plug.
And that's why.
So you force them to put the glue on there, and it forces them to, did I tighten that? Yeah.
Well, and not only that, but should the car come back, and that thing's been moved.
Yeah.
If you trust your customers not out there trying to wreck their motor to get you buy one, then
that's what I'm saying though. That's so rare.
It is, and that's what I mean. My customers in my shop, there's not one that I would expect to do something like that.
I'm saying the tech will forget to tighten that drain plug way before the customer's going to walk in wanting an engine.
We had a client who came in, and we told them about worn steering components in the front end. And they said, no, we want to go ahead and do the alignment. And then they come back with new components in the front end and said,
hey, my alignment's
out. You didn't align it correctly. It should be under warranty. That's odd. All of these pictures are showing where those marks were. Now they're gone. Huh. What do you think's up with that? And they just assume another tech's going to see it.
Yeah, what a dirtbag. Mm-hmm. Who does that?
You'd be. There's plenty out there.
So after you got into the mastermind.
Correct.
And that just happened last week, wasn't it?
I've been on, this would be week 3 of entering.
Holy cow. It does not seem like it's been 3 weeks.
No, I've been on 2 Zoom calls.
Okay. So what has changed with the shop? Because one of the first things we talked about is you need to take a damn day off.
Correct.
Because the thing that stood out to me is you talked about, you got horses, right?
Yes.
And you had not been up with the family to see the horses in what? A month, 2 months?
6.
Right?
Yep.
And so you had not done that, but that was important to your wife, and that was important to your kids.
Correct.
Right? And that was a big deal. Mm-hmm. And so one of the first things we talked about was like, just right? The cars are going to be there Monday.
Correct.
Take the weekend.
That particular message, when I told my dad about it, he said, print it out, tack it to the wall in your office so you don't forget.
Yeah.
It is tacked to the wall in my office.
And so how did it feel when you did that?
Scary. Because
what were you scared of?
Well, I knew I could turn revenue on weekends.
You just wanted the extra money?
I was worried about, what if we slow down? Let's get it while we can get it. I don't want to upset the customers, even though all of them knew. We had given them days-long timeline because when it was just me in the shop, there were times we had 19 cars there.
Yeah.
From replace a transmission in an NV200 to front brake vibration.
Yeah.
So anything in between. And some of those jobs with inspections turned into more. The biggest thing was in trying to hold deadlines, we were not always doing our inspections or not paying as well of attention to stuff.
Yeah, can't do that.
We were worried more about telling them only what was dead safety, not everything we found.
And you know what the ironic part is?
We make more doing that.
Yeah, so that it wasn't even that. That's costing you more money in the long run than waiting to fix the car and leaving it for the weekend. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yeah, it wasn't what was best for the client.
Yeah, well, that for sure. But you were pushing to work Saturday and Sunday to try to get that revenue in case we slow down, and then doing the very thing that was going to cause you to slow down by not doing the inspections.
Correct. Yes.
Yeah.
Well, and I will say, until the podcast, I had never heard of a 300% rule. We always look cars over.
Yeah.
But the mentor, prior owner, however you want to look at that, and everybody does things a little different. This is not he was successful.
Yeah.
Excuse me. We would, if he knew a customer, there were times where it would be present this, that's the most important.
Yeah.
The safety. And only this, because if we tell them everything, they're not going to do anything.
Oh, man.
That was how I was, in essence, trained.
Yeah.
Now, a lot of times I started breaking that pretty quickly because my thought in my head was always, as a customer, client, consumer, if I brought my truck in and you could make money doing $1,000 worth of brakes, $1,500 worth of brakes, and not tell me about some valve cover gaskets that are seeping, that are not right now.
Yeah.
Rear output seal on a transmission, and my shocks and struts are starting to leak. Depending on the age, miles of my truck, if you told me what it was going to cost to do all of that, that might be the kicker for me to go trade the truck.
Yeah.
So to me, you might lose that $1,000 or $1,500 brake job, but you just gain trust in the client to do
the fact that you would tell me, that you would give me that information. And, we talk about that almost every episode. Like, would it be okay with you if he didn't tell you if he saw something wrong?
Not at all.
No, I mean, that's what you're paying him for. You want to know.
Correct.
That's why you're going to see him. You talk about
Also,
the
you don't have to worry about any of this nonsense anymore since COVID. It's fantastic. Hey, every new car is $70,000. And that shitty used car you were looking at before COVID is now $35,000. Yep. So how about you pay me the $10,000 to fix your shit box?
And we've seen much more approvals of way higher estimates.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, to the point that I look at some of this and I'm like, I told you, like, you're going to have to drive this car for this length of time to break even because I want to do right and advise them on what we're doing. And if they make the decision, look at your car, we're happy to fix it. That's what we do. That's what we're here for.
Right. So I guess the big question I have, and I've never asked this, I never asked it by messenger or anything else. You did take the time off.
Oh, yeah.
what was the takeaway from the time off?
So not only did we take the weekends off because you were doctor's orders next 6 weekends.
Yeah, dude. I was like on that.
The only evenings I am there late now, and it's not touching a car. This is getting shop wear going.
Yeah.
This is getting the ideas and information Shop Marketing Pros is going to need from us.
Yeah.
Ready for them. But it is, if I'm going to stay late, it is Monday or Wednesday.
Yeah.
When my daughter has karate.
Amen, buddy.
She gets out at 7:30. I'm locking up 7:30 to 7:45. I'm home when they're home.
Yeah.
We're having dinner together. I beat them home on one karate night, like the first or second week after we talked.
Yeah.
My youngest, 4 years old, walked in the house first, and I was sitting at the island eating a snack.
Yeah.
And she looks over, her face lights up, and she turns back out toward the garage, and she goes, "Mama, Daddy's home." And that right there was, that was two things. It was a good feeling, but it was a kick in the balls that I'd been doing some things wrong.
Yeah.
That I needed to make sure I was there for her. Same thing there with the mastermind group.
Yeah.
You know, part of that was no more than 3 meetings missed in a 6-month period.
Right.
The second week, my daughter was getting her yellow belt.
Oh, man. That's
And my wife
awesome.
tells me, she goes, "It's at 6:30. I said, "Zoom starts at 7. And she goes, "They always do the belts first." I said, "If I have to, I will go back in the parking lot and fire up the iPad and do the Zoom from the parking lot if I have to. I will be there when she gets her yellow belt."
Amen, buddy.
And weekends, I went in one day, I believe, since we talked. And it was it was this weekend, trying to help a customer that has been the most understanding customer I've had in my career, even before buying it.
Right.
And trying to help her knowing that I had a short week.
Yeah.
And so that was where I felt like I'm off Thursday and Friday.
Right.
And I was allotting myself about 4 hours, not a long period of time.
Right.
I'm going to wake up, I'm going to get to the shop at 8, and then I'm going to be home by noon. My wife and kids tend to lounge around till noon on a weekend.
Yeah.
So I'm home by the time they're ready to hop in a Jeep and head to the mountains or go over to the barn.
So what does Mom think about all this after the change?
Well, there was a couple of times she told me to go back to work because she could tell it was still on my mind.
Yeah.
But no, in all reality, it has been a break for her. I think even 1 or 2 of the times I threw the kids in the Jeep and just took them for a ride for an hour and gave her a quiet time.
Right.
That she didn't have in those 42 days.
Yeah.
Because she was never either not working or dealing with the kids.
Right.
Like, that is the one thing, if you can't do that, find what to fix or find someone to help you find what to fix to allow for some time off.
We don't often realize the impact that it has on those around us. And just like her having time off too. Right. Because by you deciding I'm not going to take time off, you decided she wasn't going to take time off because that's a full-time job, buddy.
It is.
Taking care of the youngins is a full-time job.
And I mean, to that point, I came to her a year and a half ago.
Yeah.
And I said, if we sell my little hot rod BMW that we had boosted to the moon on E50 and we sell your Murano, we can go look for a Jeep Wrangler for you.
Right.
And she looked at me and she said, "But you love that car." And I know buying an item doesn't fix time at the shop and away from the family.
Right.
But I told her, I said, "You have stood behind me taking over a business. You have been the kids' taxi.
Yeah.
You're still working a full-time job. You have been the one there at the house when I'm at work till 10 or 11.
Right.
You're putting them to bed. You're cooking them dinner." I said, "You have wanted a Jeep for 10 years. It is your turn."
Amen, buddy.
And she
got it and was sorely disappointed in the quality and craftsmanship of the vehicle.
So far,
Why is it leaking oil and coolant?
Wait a minute.
What's that ticking noise? That's a 36 rocker. Don't worry about it.
2-liter turbo. 2-liter turbo, so it's going to puke coolant everywhere. But we bought it 1-year-old, 8,500 miles. In the color she asked for, it was a Sarge Green Rubicon. And she knew I was looking. She knew I looked at that one. But I threw her off, excuse me, by sending her 3 or 4 other Jeeps I found. My sister took me to pick it up. We brought it to the house, big pink bow. She was ecstatic. She was disappointed when it had to go in for the warranty paint on the hood for the bubbling that they do.
Right.
And she lost it for 3 days and was disappointed.
So I guess the next big thing we got to ask is did the business fall apart?
No. It's done better.
Imagine that.
And here's the thing. With those 3 price matrices we did, and just making sure, my notes were always good enough. I'm not going to say that one didn't slip through the crack.
Yeah.
But my notes were always, I attempted to write them in a way that built value to a customer.
Yeah.
And I did that even before I took over because I didn't want Larry coming out and asking me, why do we sell this?
Yeah.
I would take a trouble tree, print it, and write results and circle yeses and nos and work through it and circle what it said replace.
Right.
And turn that in. And that also gave us history if we ever had to go back.
Yeah, go back and say, look.
And so my notes were always pretty good. But if you have good notes, you built the value to the customer, it makes charging for proper timing of finding the, if we're going to go 3 C's, complaint, cause, and correction, finding the correction. Charging that time is much easier when you can show the customer why you're charging it.
Yep.
When you do that and you slightly change your margins on parts, it allows for the numbers to just sort of work themselves out.
Yep.
We're not necessarily making more on a week or per. We're not necessarily making more per tech's weekly output if we were to have ignored a couple things. But when I ran the estimate the old way, I took probably 10 or 15 old estimates.
Yeah.
And then I ran them with the way you and I talked.
Yeah.
And on average, there was about a $50 difference to the customer, which is somebody needs to pay for this.
Yep.
But for me to have the life that the customer wants to have, to be off with their kids, to have a solid vehicle, to have time or funds to take a ride to the mountains or down to the beach.
Right.
For that to happen, somebody has to fund us.
Yeah.
And at the same time, and I've talked with my techs, it's not like when I started making some changes, I told them what was going on.
Yeah.
And I said, you have to understand, this is not to put another Harley in my garage.
Yeah.
Not that it wouldn't happen, but I want to share this with everybody here.
Yeah.
I wish, my thought right now, and there's some shops pushing this, I feel that in my area, there should not be a reputable shop under $200 an hour. That is my feeling when I look at what other trades are charging.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so, and when I tell a technician that, and he goes, well, the dealer only charged this. And I said, well, here's what $200 an hour would allow me to do for you.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then it puts a different perspective to the tech.
So let's say that there's a listener, as we wrap up here, let's say there's a listener and he's working 6 and 7 days a week and he's working 12 hours a day and he's just going nonstop and he's doing it because if I don't do this, I'm not going to be able to take care of my client. I'm not going to be able to get this done. I'm not going to be able to make enough money. What would you say to them?
If the client is willing to leave over you not getting it done in a reasonable time in this market of being backed up, sorry, then hope you can edit good, David.
I don't edit any of that out. I leave it all. Keep it organic.
That's right.
But if they cannot understand that, they're not really your client.
Amen, buddy.
They're not going to take care of you if something happens, and that's something you told me.
Yeah.
What I've also found by going home earlier, I'm more productive. I can do the same amount of work
in half the time.
I can do the same amount of work and leave at 5:30.
Yep.
We say we close at 5, and the way we do it, it's not walking out the door at 5.
Yeah.
It is we close at 5, and we all go out there. We pull cars around. We shut gates. We pull doors down.
Yeah.
15 minutes. If I stay an extra 15 to input some stuff into an Excel file, that's on me.
Yeah.
But if I'm out the door at 5:30, I come in the next morning, I'm awake, I'm alert.
Yeah. You ain't beat.
I
you ain't
have not
stressed out.
I've had comebacks on myself.
Yeah.
I've had less since making sure I was alert and awake at the shop.
Amen, buddy.
Awesome.
That's awesome.
So,
thank you for being here, brother.
yes, sir.